Tales from the wild. Stories from the heart. A journey into the mind and soul of fired-up business professionals where they share their vision for the future. And hear from a different non-profit organization every month as they create awareness of their goals and their needs. Dive into a world of untamed passion as we join our host, Shireen Buerta, for this month's episode of Friends from Wild Places.
What a beautiful journey, though, that you described, for yourself. I actually, just before I forget, I want to ask you two questions. One is, I had an opportunity to visit India last December, and I came away from there just saying it is the most sacred land that I've ever experienced. Like from there's no words to even describe it, but that
Yeah, I
was
don't
my.
know. I don't know what the deal with India is. They got all the tradition, all the histories. It's like this incredibly spiritual place, yet it's a very, they just don't have their act together with infrastructure, you know, and yet they're very advanced with like technology and stuff. It's just a fascinating country, and there's so many people there, and there's rich people and there's poor people. It's like, and they have this spirituality stuff that maybe it's just where they are on the planet or the history that they have there, but it's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
like
was
the
my.
United States, forget about it. We don't have anything that comes close to touching.
Yeah. So my questions based on what you've shared are two things. One is with your work with the cancer patients, what was your I don't want to say intention because maybe that's not the right word, but for
Yeah.
example, is it to have the cancer patients make peace with where they are? Was it to give them energy to either accept where they are? I mean, I don't think it was to heal them, correct? Because there's certain cancers that, I mean, it's not like, I mean, everybody
Some
is
people
expected.
did go through healing experiences, but that was not the intention.
So what did
Mhm.
you find to kind of like summarize with working in that specific population? What
Okay,
was
so
there?
working with cancer patients was everything. It was life and death. It was miraculous experiences. So there were some people that would come in, I'd interview them on the first session, and I would know before they knew that I was going to help this person die as
Mhm.
peacefully as possible. So the first thing with hypnotherapy, when you know people come see you for all sorts of different reasons, and they were entitled to have 6 sessions with me as long as they're undergoing radiation treatment. So some people were very metaphysical and actually wanted to do healing. Okay, so I couldn't approach it that way just because that's not what we were doing. And I don't want to sell hypnotherapy like that. But we get people to relax. The first thing to do is just to help people relax because they're under very, very stressful considerations, are under very stressful circumstances because everyone in the back of their mind who has cancer, whether it's like, just a melanoma on their face or like some serious breast cancer or something, everyone has the same thought in the back of their mind, and that is, okay, is this going to take me out? Is this how I die? And nobody ever talks about that with cancer patients. And so by about the time the third session rolled around, at some point I wanted to talk about death with people. Not all of them, but most of them. And most people really wanted to talk about death, just to get it off their chest or whatever. And then I had, for some, um, in order to help them come to peace with where they're with cancer, I would take them through these hypnotherapy experience with these guided meditations where I would take them through their death experience. So they would actually go through their imagined death experience and what it would be like on the other side. And for those that wanted to do that, it was absolutely phenomenal experience because when they came back, they realized that there's nothing to be afraid of. And so it helped them deal with cancer much more effectively. So when the fear of death is gone, then you can live more fully. Death is a great teacher. And then for most of the people dealing with cancer, on some level, you know, having cancer, it's an emotional minefield. So you need to help people with their emotions, and there could be suppressed emotions in there that are actually helping create the cancer itself. So at some point, usually early on, I'd want to take people through releasing suppressed emotions from the past, and that's a big deal with hypnotherapy. And when you do that, it can create a lot of emotional release. For some people, actually cause physical healing. And from those suppressed emotions from the past, for almost everybody, it deals with your primary family of origin. So if you want to go into the deeper healing work, you need to be willing to deal with your emotional um, unresolved with your family.
Very important, very important.
Yeah,
And
huge.
you know, it's so
Not
funny,
for
Joseph.
cancer, but for everything, you know.
Correct, correct, correct. So
But
it's so
yeah,
I feel like we are like on what's the word like different like parallels of the universe because my former career was in medical administration, and I actually ran an oncology office for
oh,
my
cool.
former boss, Dr. Kenneth Kern, who specialized in breast cancer, thyroid cancer, and malignant melanoma. So I saw before I transitioned into the mortuary world exactly what other maybe considerations that you're describing as far as how people approach their cancer. There were some people that actually identified it. They wore it like their cloak, like I have cancer, like that, and they would almost like that's who they identified with. And then there's other people who never, once it was removed, they never wanted to talk about it again. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and it's just how people approach the same quote unquote diagnosis, even though there's many degrees of it, but how people handle it differently. So it's fascinating. But I want to ask one more. I had two questions. So one was about the cancer. Second is the geology aspect. So, as far as understanding like crystals, a lot of people like the metaphysical world, or just having, for example, rose quartz and amethyst and selenite around them. I have a question. What is it when, for example, like if somebody is drawn to a certain crystal, like it talks to them or resonate? Would you, from your perspective, as far as a geologist, would you say that that person needs more of it? What is the reason for that attraction with
Mm,
a or
so
a
so
stone?
crystal. So interestingly enough, as a geologist and with my interest in healing and stuff, I've never really been drawn to crystals, which is I find really fascinating. I don't know why that is, but I do know that crystals give off a vibrational frequency and they can be used in healing. And I would say if someone feels drawn to a particular crystal, they should wear it. You know, if it makes them feel good, it's probably doing something to up their vibrational energy field. And I would say, yeah, have it around. If you go into a crystal shop that has like a lot of amethyst, you know, like purple crystals, like that, those are more common. If you can, well, I don't know. It's an interesting exercise, I'll say. If you can go and stand in front of those crystals and see if you feel anything. You know, it
Yeah.
used to be I go into crystal shops, I think they're interesting. Now it's like if I go into a crystal shop, I can't get like, you know, more than 10 feet in front of the amethyst display because it's too strong, you know, so that's part of my own sensitivity that's developed over time. So yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Well, thank you so much for sharing. My two
Yeah.
questions are answered. And Shireen,
No,
how about you? Any questions for Joseph or?
Tanya, you actually kind of answered some of my questions too. So thank you for that. But first of all, I've never had that experience. I don't know what it is to be drawn to a crystal. But then again, I haven't actually been, or have I? I've yet to have that experience. I don't know if I'm just, I don't know. Maybe I'm just no, too numb or
No,
I'm
you're just, we're all unique. It's all good.
anyway. But Joseph, I don't know if you know, but Friends from Wild Places is really a place to share stories like yourself and other business owners and professionals. It's really a safe place to show support for each other all over the world. And we also feature nonprofits every month to try and make a difference, or even just give a helpline to someone in need. So, listeners, do you have a message you'd like to share with the world? Or maybe you just think it'll be fun to have your own talk show or just your own podcast. That's what it's called nowadays. It used to be called radio in my day. But anyway, we go with the times, but please follow the link in the show notes. This lets Buzzsprout know we sent you, and it does help support the show because the team at Buzzsprout is really passionate about helping you succeed in starting that podcast of yours. But Joseph, I earlier on you mentioned powerful medicines. What do you mean by powerful medicines? If you can give a few examples of those powerful medicines that you learned about, and do you use them in your sessions?
Okay, so when I use the phrase powerful medicine, I was kind of borrowing some a Native American phrase. So
Uh,
this guy has powerful medicine, so that's like spiritual energies. And so when I have learned about hypnotherapy and the more I get into it, I would call that a powerful medicine because what we're doing is that we're going into the subconscious mind through deep states of relaxation, and we're actually accessing and harnessing the power of the subconscious mind, which is a phenomenal tool that is we're just learning how to use it now in the evolution of us as a species. And I think as we move forward, this non-invasive, um, holistic, energetic type healings are going to become more commonplace and they're going to become more in the mainstream. Right now, they're still seen outside of the box a bit, so they're not, you're not going to see them as much in like traditional medicine and things like that. But I think as we progress and in the future generations, we're going to see a lot more of that.
Okay.
It's because I teach clinical hypnotherapy certification, and when I started doing it 30 years ago, it was like kind of woo-woo, like weird stuff. Now I'm teaching like students from all over the world, like in their 20s and 30s, and they just can't get enough of it. So they're good. So the younger generation is going to really run with it. So it's yeah.
Joseph, can you walk our listeners through like just some basic, like if people maybe just heard of hypnosis but they're not sure like what it means, or like,
Right.
can you walk through like whether people are doing it for example, weight loss or smoking cessation, or to maybe past life regression? Can you walk us through just what it feels like, and take out or demystify some of the myths
Sure.
around?
So first of all, historically, there's a lot of misconceptions when you use the word hypnotherapy or hypnosis in particular. People automatically, for whatever reason, they go to stage hypnosis, where someone's being made to bark like a chicken or something like that. So even though that is a legitimate form of entertainment and they are tapping into the subconscious mind, the work that I do in hypnotherapy, it's a form of guided meditation. So I take people into deeply relaxed states for primarily three reasons. And the first one is to do healing. So it's mostly emotional healing of suppressed emotion that can be released from the past, which has a huge impact on everyone's life and they don't know it. So suppressed emotion. It can also be used to enhance creativity, and it can also be used to help people develop spiritually, especially in the concept of things like spiritual awakening. So what hypnotherapy can be used for is is just about anything. You hear it used for smoking and losing weight a lot, but um, that's behavior modification, and that's just the surface level of what you can do with hypnotherapy. So hypnotherapy, what you're doing when you go into deeply relaxed states, you are entering the subconscious mind. And so when you enter the subconscious mind through a deep state of relaxation, you're essentially entering the suspended dream state. And so um, it's actually a natural state that we go into every day, twice a day. And it's right before you wake up in the morning, right before you go to sleep at night. It's the hazy zone between being asleep and being awake. And so what you can do in a hypnotherapy session is you can go into that state of mind and you can extend it for a period of time, like up to an hour. And so when you go into the subconscious mind, um, it's really important to understand what the subconscious mind is, first of all. And the subconscious mind is the home of the non-physical aspects of the human experience. So that includes our intuition, our dreams, our creative flashes, our memories, and most of all, our emotions. That's the biggest thing that I probably work with on everyone. So what happens is that when we experience, so emotions are born to be experienced. Okay, that's their only job. And so when emotions are experienced, they simply dissolve and go back into the ether. However, almost all of us, in fact, I will say all of us even, have a natural tendency on a subconscious level to not want to experience unpleasant emotion. We don't want to experience our pain. We don't want to experience our jealousy. We don't experience our fear. So what we do is that on a subconscious level, so we don't know we're doing it consciously, we avoid those emotions. And when that happens, they get stuffed or they get suppressed into our subconscious mind. And so when that happens, we have these little living entities of fear or pain or whatever that are living inside of us. And all they want to do is they want to be experienced. Because that's their only job, right? And so what they'll do is that they'll start to create situations and scenarios in our lives where we can experience that pain, that fear, or whatever. So we'll start to see these things come up. And if we continue to avoid those on a subconscious level, again, we don't know we're doing it, what we'll start to see are repeating patterns of the same pain over and over and over again. You have the same problems with finances over and over again. You have the same problems in relationships over and over again. You have the same problems in your health over and over again. And so, and who are, these unfortunate people, excuse me, these unfortunate people that have these repeating patterns? Want to guess? Everybody. So everybody
Oh,
has these suppressed
okay.
emotions inside of them with these repeating patterns of pain. And so what the beauty of hypnotherapy is, and types of energy healing, you can go into these deeply relaxed states. And when you do that, it lets down the barrier between the conscious and the conscious mind called the critical faculty of the mind. And when that happens, then these suppressed emotions from the past are there, and you can essentially just release them by asking them to leave. It's a very profound experience. And when that happens, is that the repeating patterns will stop. Okay, so or the problems that you have will diminish in their intensity or their frequency. So that's probably the main thing that I do with people in terms of healing. And then, but when you get into the subconscious mind and it starts to clear out all these suppressed emotions from the past, in which people really don't have that many of, then it becomes a conduit for higher vibrational energy. You know, the buzzword phrase for it now is called quantum energy. And so this is a creative force. And so when you start tapping into that, your life's going to get very creative and different, not only consciously, but subconsciously. You know, you'll start to see synchronicities. You'll get into what's called divine flow. And then when you get into that state, then you can start going up to different levels of experiencing energy to higher vibrational frequencies. And so that takes time and effort and stuff like that, but the rewards are like fascinating. The
Is
life
that what
gets
you described?
takes on
Is that
very interesting. What's that?
is that what you
What?
described earlier as far as like you became like into music, a musician and an author?
Well,
Is
yeah,
that how?
for me, it happened kind of without knowing. It just exploded out of me. I went through this really cathartic experience, and um, went through some huge changes immediately, and then the creativity just started pouring out. So I think I was kind of an extreme example, but I've seen it happen with lots of other people. When they start dealing with these energies, life gets very creative. And so
Mhm.
that includes in business. So, so if you can take this level of awareness and put it into business, it can be great for coming up with new ideas and strategies, but or maintaining problems or problem solving and stuff. So like I work with, a number of entrepreneurs who they probably wouldn't come on this show and say that they use this stuff on themselves, but they do it personally and they interject it into their business with some great success. So, and it's a personal growth process at the same time. So,
Yeah. I mean,
you
I love that. I love that you brought that in because my next question is, you being an entrepreneur and business owner yourself with your academy that you've started, what would you say would have been one of the biggest struggles that you've faced on this journey?
Okay, so let's go
How did
back
you
30
overcome
years to where I started doing hypnotherapy and all this kind of weird stuff, way, way outside of the box. It's even outside of the box today. So one of my biggest struggles in doing this um, is that because it's outside of the box, it's non-traditional, my biggest challenge has been making money. So, and that's not uncommon for a lot of healers. And so, um, one is because we don't possess all the personality traits necessary to be successful in business. So many healers they're highly um, sensitive, they're empathic, and they're introverted. So they don't have the promotional personality type. They may not have the emotional and mental toughness to get through certain parts of business. When you go through the ups and downs, or you have to like do some serious problem solving. So that's a problem for a lot of healers. And so how I have overcome it is just it's one day at a time, and keep focused on what it is you're doing and why are you doing it,
Yeah.
And so one thing about anybody in business, especially healers, it's like, that you always hear the need, well, you need to persevere because, times are going to get tough and at some point you're going to have to cut back, or you're going to have to persevere through the hard times. Well, if you're born to do what you're doing, if it's your mission in life, you don't need to persevere because you're going to do it no matter what, because it's what you're born to do. So, it can knock you down flat, but you're still going to do it. So, you know, so
Would that be your, because that would be my next question. What's your
absolutely.
way?
I
Do
can't
you
stop. I couldn't stop if I
someone?
wanted to. So I was born to do what I do, and the nature component adds to it. So it's like, you know, come whatever, stick with this to the end. Plus, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating, and you can see how other people, it changes their lives and how it makes them come alive and be the fullest version who they're meant to be, So and not everyone's a healer, so I can help business people, I can help athletes, and stuff like that. So it's just, I don't know, I'm hooked.
That's
I'm
so
in it for the long
Yeah,
haul. So
it's
yeah,
fascinating. fascinating just hearing your journey. So what would you say though, Joseph, is there a distinction between energy healers and hypnotherapists? Like, because you
Yes.
put them
So
together. Was it
you
is
can,
yours more of
so
a combined field?
mine's a combined, so they're complementary modalities. So usually, if I was to take someone who didn't know anything and wanted to go to be the greatest healer they could be, I would take them through hypnotherapy first, because that's where you're gonna, when you learn to do it and you start doing it with other people, you're gonna have to go through your own healing process. And so you're gonna be clearing out your suppressed emotions from the past and all that stuff, and then you're gonna be open up to be this conduit. And then that's when I would start training you in energy healing,
Awesome.
because there's techniques you can do to, now of course not everybody does that, everyone has their own way to go. They might start with energy healing and never do hypnotherapy or vice versa, but hypnotherapy in its purest and truest form is a form of spiritual healing. Now you
Mm,
won't hear that from people who just do it for weight loss or um, quit smoking or behavioral modification and stuff. And then there might be some people who even teach hypnotherapy who wouldn't recognize it as that either.
right.
But my experience, just because my journey has been very spiritual from the get-go, hypnotherapy has naturally led me into higher spiritual realms.
Wow.
Right.
And
So you've
it's a,
done, right? No, go
yeah,
ahead.
what's, and it's a natural progression in my experience.
Okay. So like you've touched on, for example, so for our listeners out there, for example, athletes or people who want to be athletes, maybe, try hypnotherapy. You've also tried people, maybe behavior modifications. You've tried, I guess there's probably the trauma component too, right? People with PTSD or complex
Mm.
PTSD
Well,
to really,
everybody has a form of PTSD. Everybody has experienced trauma when they're young, and it affects their behavior when they become adults. It's from the suppressed emotion. It could be you have problems in relationships, like you get divorced because of this person is treating you a certain way. Da 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 da. You get into your next marriage and this different person, but they're still treating you the same way. So what that is telling you, that because it's a repeating pattern, has nothing to do with the other person. It's what's going on inside of you. And so everybody has that affects different parts of their lives. It can be abandonment issues, not being successful, repeating patterns, health issues. So it's like it hits almost everyone has some repeating pattern at some point where hypnotherapy could very likely help them. You
Mhm.
know,
Would you say
it's
like a core belief, like the core beliefs, like it touches on our, like, those kind of core beliefs that we have, like, and people, like, for example, like people aren't, if you feel like I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not whatever, loved enough, or whatever those fear is, does that kind of touch on?
absolutely. So those beliefs are subconscious, so we're not consciously aware of them, and so the not good enough, the unworthiness is so huge in so many millions and millions of people's lives that we don't achieve our potential because of how we were berated or treated as a child. We
Mm.
just
Yeah,
weren't
limited
supported or
beliefs.
given the love that we needed. And that's not our parents' fault. That happened to their parents and their parents and their parents as far back as you want to go. So
Mhm.
it's like it's just the way it is. And so when you're in that situation, the only thing you can do is like to take steps to heal yourself. And
Right.
that's going to help your children. So um, you know, so it hits us all. We're all wounded people, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
on some level.
We're trying to get whole.
Yeah.
Tune in next week for part 3 of Friends from Wild Places.
You've been listening to Friends from Wild Places with Shireen Bueta. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast from the links to catch every episode and unleash your passion.